It was an exciting day a few days ago because a special package finally arrived at my house. Today we are going to look at the Resolve Speed Editor and try to decide if it is worth the money. So here it is, DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor. It's a nice, actually fairly hefty little machine. Yes, the trackball does feel pretty nice. Lots of good buttons. They're all pre-assigned, there's no mapping. It is designed for DaVinci Resolve 17, which is in beta stage, which I typically wouldn't be using right now, but I have installed it to try this. But the real question is this device worth it? Now, right now, if you are thinking of buying Resolve Studio, then definitely this device is worth it because it's essentially free. They're giving this away, or they're essentially giving this away with the purchase of Resolve Studio. For people like me who, strangely enough, you might find this odd. I used to edit at a machine, as some of us did, not a lot anymore, but some of us used to edit at machines that had no mouse, had no keyboard, had no computer. It was tape to tape, and our only interface with the tape machines was an edit controller, much like this. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Grant Petty at Blackmagic is another one of those people. And that is why he has been pushing for these kind of devices between this and the larger, more expensive Resolve keyboard that also has the jog wheel on it. And I, for one, I love these things. I love the jog wheel. I love editing with the jog wheel. If you have seen any of my other videos recently, you'll see that I now have a Pro Tools dock that has a jog wheel. It interfaces with my Stream Decks. And I can't live without that when I'm editing. Before that, I've had some other Yukon or Euphonics items, including my original MC Transport. This, I still think, is actually one of the best transport controls I have used. The shuttle knob on the outside has a little bit of a snapback to it. The jog wheel feels very similar in weight. It's a little light. This one's a little lighter than the Speed Editor. But, the programmable buttons, but I don't use this anymore. And it's not for lack of liking it. I loved this device. But I moved on to other Euphonics, including the MC Control, which went with the MC Color. When I bought the Resolve Mini Panel, then I switched to the MC Dock because, again, I love having the jog wheel. The jog wheel, to me, on any of these kind of devices is worth whatever they want to charge for this. Jog wheels, if you have used them in the past, are wonderful devices. If you haven't used them, I suggest you try to get into using a jog wheel. It's a great way to work in an edit system. Having said that, is this worth it for only working with one program? Because this would actually work with multiple programs. This will only work with one program. It's built for the cut page. It does work with the edit page, apparently. And I did a quick test, and if nothing else, the stop and play button does work in the color page as well. But let's launch Resolve and let's just see how this device actually works. So we're in Resolve, we're in the cut page. I brought in the beautiful deboxification footage that you have just seen. I apologize, you do not have a perfect overhead camera, but I think you'll get the idea of what we're doing here. So let's jump right into the first control most people are probably going to try to do, and that is the jog button. And as we can see, I have just lost connection with this thing. I did a little test before I started recording this video. So let's do another relaunch. Oh, I just picked it up and put it down, and the lights briefly came on. Okay, I just have to stop right now because I could not get this thing to stay connected to my computer. The Bluetooth was horrible, horrible. Connecting, disconnecting, connecting, disconnecting. I was having to take it and set it on top of my computer to get it to connect, bring it back over. I could work with it for a couple of minutes and then it would disconnect again. If I hardwired it in with the USB-C cable, everything seemed to be pretty good, but the Bluetooth would not work. Again, I'm on a Windows box. So what I did, I happened to have an external Bluetooth antenna. I plugged that into my box. I turned off the internal one that I had been using, which is an Intel chip. I plugged in an Asus Bluetooth antenna and connected up, and all of a sudden everything was working. The jog wheel takes about a full rotation to do a full second of jogging on the device. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Shuttle and scroll, much more responsive. Everything works. It connects right away. It doesn't get disconnect every 30 seconds. So if you are having an issue on Windows, Bluetooth, you might want to consider not using your internal Bluetooth antenna and look for an external one. Maybe it's just stronger antenna, I don't know. Anyway, so once I got that figured out, then I went back into Resolve, and this is what I managed to figure out as far as using this device. Okay, so we are up and running. We have launched Resolve. I've got a blank timeline. I have a folder called B-roll. So let's hit our source button, which should bring everything in the B-roll bin in. Go to our jog, and we can now jog through this footage. This is scroll, which is a very fast move through the footage. Now, if I hit source again, I believe I go straight to the clip that I'm on. Maybe not. Let's start with this little zoom in. So we'll mark an in. We're going to jog. Jog has taken me to a slightly different view on my timeline than the shuttle has. And scroll. I do wish there was a go to in and go to out. I think that would be a, I mean, that's something I use a lot when I edit. Got a bit of a stall in the camera there, so let's go back to the reset. Mark in there. The other thing that I wish we had, and I kind of expect from having used other controllers before that are basically always live, if I hit play and I now move the jog wheel, I kind of expect it to take over, and it doesn't. It is staying on play until I hit the jog button. And that's, I mean, it's not bad, but it's a feature or a function or a workflow that I would expect to happen. I'm going to hit append, send it to the timeline, go back to scroll, let's go to one of our pans. Start over here. With the different Bluetooth connector, this is much smoother. I mean, it was bad before. It was very bad. I couldn't control anything with it. Now I feel like I'm on a lot more control. And we'll mark that as an out. And we'll call that our clips we want to work with. So let's go in and see what kind of trimming we can do on this. The other thing that I learned, you have to start, I'll go back to my mouse for a second here, you have to learn to look at the upper track more than the lower track, I think. The lower track doesn't give you a lot of information on the cut page because you can't see that the edit is coming up. So you really have to be looking up here to see where your edit points are, and that's something you just have to, I think, just have to get used to. Now there is a scroll button that changes the behavior where they both scroll together. Maybe that's a better way to have this going. So, do we want this first one to trim? Let's trim this first shot out a little bit. Let's go to there, and we will trim out. So we're going to go trim, hold the trim out button. And we will trim back to the point where we are at. Now I do have snap connected. The snap is very different on this. It's not your traditional snap, so it's a little harder to get used to the feel of it. And we'll trim this in so we don't get as much white on the side. So we'll trim this into here. So again, we're going to hold the trim. Now it's selecting the next clip down the line, which is not what I wanted. Okay, so we can go past the edit point, find where we want our in to be, and then on this we're going to trim the out. No, so we have to keep an eye on our little marker up here, so that we know where the trim is we are going to be working with. So we're going to trim that out a little bit. Let's just play this down. Fine with that. We'll trim the in on this in a bit. Get it a little closer. And we will trim the out. Bobby on the start there. So we'll go to the in and we'll take that back. Very nice, actually. I really like the way this thing trims. I think that is very well thought out. And then one of these we will do a zoom in on. So say now if I want to do a close-up, it actually does a shot on top close-up. That's not what I want. So I think for this we have to go over to our mouse. We'll zoom in on our transport controls. And let's stabilize that clip. Now I didn't select the clip. I'm assuming it's going to stabilize the clip I'm over top of. Again, I'm a pretty big rookie on the cut page. So that the trimming is, I think, is incredible. The controls, now that I have my Bluetooth working better, or a different Bluetooth module actually, much more precise than they were off the original Intel Bluetooth controller that I had. Source and timeline buttons seem to be fine. Audio level is actually a neat little idea. I don't have any audio on these clips, but sync bin and the multicam is a totally different setup. We're not doing multicam right now. The idea of holding and doing a viewer, we have to be on timeline for this. Maybe we have to turn off the inspector for this. Double click and hold. There it is. Again, I think this is great. I would like this to be a zoom in and out on the timeline as well. because I think that would translate over to the edit page very nicely. That does not do anything. Oh, no, that doesn't do anything on the edit page. All in all, this is a pretty good little device, actually. There's a few things. The place on top is a great idea, but at some point I need to drop it down, usually into my main timeline, and that is something you have to do with the mouse. Close up, I'm not so sure about. I think I'm the type of person that's going to want to do my own resize on some of these things. I can appreciate that you have control over the Y position on resizing some of these things. I don't understand why there isn't an X position right next to it. That seems a little odd. Split clip is something that's really good to have here. Transition type and durations all, let's do a quick peek here. Let's put a transition there. Default transition is a dissolve. If we don't want to dissolve, we hold this down and we can change this transition to an arrow iris. If we want to change the length of that transition, we hold transition duration down. And again, I think this is brilliant. Are you listening, Avid? These types of controls, to be able to do these types of things from within a controller like this, brilliant. And then if we want to get rid of it or change it to a dissolve, we can, or change it to a cut, and we can. So, I mean, that stuff's all great. The title, not sure what the title button is supposed to do. I thought that would bring up the title tool, but maybe not. Snap on, it does grab it a little bit. It's actually more my type of snapping, to be perfectly honest. It's kind of the snapping that we used to have on Avid DS. A little more intuitive as to whether you wanted to stop or not, not forcing you to stop every time you got within a frame of it. Just that little pause to help you say, yeah, that's what I wanted. That's pretty good. Marker is a double click, and then he said if you hold down, I guess double click and hold, there is a way of changing your marker color. Maybe that is something to be implemented still, because I'm pretty sure I saw that. Actually, I'm positive I saw that. Okay, just a couple of quick closing thoughts on the Resolve Speed Editor. And these are probably more comments towards the cut page than they are on the editor. I like the editor quite a bit. I love the trim function on it. I think some of the trim ideas that they're presenting with the combination of buttons and the scroll wheel are genius. The two tiers or multiple video tracks aspect of the cut page, I don't think it works at all. I found if I had 2 layers of video and I hit play on the cut page, quite often I'd have a delay 2-3 seconds before it would start playing. If I switched to the edit page and I hit play, it was instantaneous. So I don't think it's optimized the same way that the edit page is. If I have 2 clips on top of each other and I want to move just one of those clips, I have to manually select it with the mouse before hitting the move button, and the jog wheel only controls the uppermost clip. If I don't specifically select the top one, it moves both video tracks at once, and that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't understand why I can put something on the top, but I can't drop it down one again without hitting the mouse. Again, I look at this as a way of not holding on to my mouse, not touching my mouse as much as possible. And some of the ideas in here are a lot of things that I will do constantly. Go to in. I would love to see go to in, go to out as one of the buttons on here. I'd love to see mappable buttons on here. I don't do a lot of multicam editing, so I can think of a lot better things to use these buttons right down the middle here for than multicam editing. And then the one thing that I'm really struggling with, and I don't know if I'm just out to lunch here, and please leave a comment and tell me what I'm doing wrong, but I see Smart Insert, I see Append, I see Ripple Overwrite, and I see Source Overwrite, which according to Grant's video and from what I've tried is a multicam button. Place on top. What I don't see is just Overwrite. Why can I not put an edit or put a clip on my timeline and then do a couple of other edits, go back to that original clip and put a different clip in its place? I can't. Everything is insert, append goes to the end of the timeline, ripple overwrite shifts everything down the timeline. Why can't I just do an overwrite? If I want to do an overwrite, I got to grab a mouse and I got to drag that clip onto the timeline. And that seems really strange to me, that we're missing the most basic edit function that we do, and that is just an overwrite. But again, there's a lot of really good things in here, and if you can get one while their sale is still on, that it's essentially free, then there's no reason not to buy it if you're looking at Resolve Studio in the first place. I think the next thing to do is to see how many of these translate across to the edit page, because I think in the end, I find the edit page more comfortable. I find the layout a little more comfortable. It's lack of practice, I know, on the cut page, but I just think the edit page, not that I edit on Resolve anyway, I just feel like the edit page feels a little more comfortable to me. But yeah, no, it's a pretty good device. I can certainly see with some practice, it would speed your editing. Whether it's going to make me switch away from editing on Avid, probably not right now, but you know, you never say never, right? Anyway, there you go. That's my thoughts on the Resolve Speed Editor. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you've found with it, and let me know if you think you're going to buy one. Love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.